Today, I'm going to be informing you on the world's most ancient, violent, gruesome, and arguably difficult sport, wrestling. When you think of wrestling, I bet all that comes to mind are eating disorders or students with around a 1.2 GPA. But that is in fact not what wrestling was meant to represent. Today, I'm going to go over the origins of wrestling, important historical figures who have wrestled, and the evolution to modern day wrestling. After my speech, I hope to broaden your understanding so that you think of more than just two scrawny kids rolling around on the floor. Wrestling is the oldest sport that we still engage in today. In fact, there are cave drawings estimated to be about 15,000 years old that depict wrestling. Also, ancient Babylonia and Greece have works of art that depict wrestling being about 3000 BC. But the civilization that believed in the benefits of wrestling the most is the ancient Greeks. They had schools dedicated to wrestling called palaestras, where they made their male children attend. Wrestling was first added to the Olympics in 776 BC, where they were also, like any other ancient sport, they were made to compete nude. As we get more recent, as wrestling gained popularity, it has also been enjoyed by some of our great American presidents, or as I like to call, commander in collar ties. Starting off with George Washington, at only 18 years old, hosted a colony-wide tournament called the Collar and Elbow, and Abraham Lincoln, who became his county's wrestling champion at only 21 years old after he beat Jack Armstrong, the previous county champion. Moving on to William Howard Taft, who is known for being a little on the bigger side, so it should come at no surprise that he was a heavyweight champion at Yale University. And then William Howard Taft's immediate predecessor, Teddy Roosevelt, was by far the most dedicated to wrestling, as he continued to better himself into his late 40s with wrestling workouts all throughout his campaign as governor of New York. Now, as the presidents get more recent, it brings me to my final point, modern day wrestling. When wrestling was first added to the Olympics in 776 BC, there was two events. The first being a toppling event where the wrestlers would try to throw their opponent to make their back or shoulders touch the ground to earn a point, where 3 points were needed to win. And the next was a mix of wrestling and boxing called pancration, where the winner won by incapacitating their opponent. Now, fast forwarding a couple years into the Middle Ages, where the Turkish soldiers brought a new form of wrestling to Islam called Quraysh, where they wrestled in long pants and shirts. And the goal of this was to make your opponent hit the ground with their back for any amount of time. This later became the national sport of Iran. Moving on to modern day wrestling. Modern day wrestling is divided into three categories: folk style, freestyle, and Greco-Roman. Folk style is the only sport, or the only style of wrestling sanctioned in high school, because many of the throws you can find in freestyle and Greco would be considered potentially dangerous and illegal in folk style. They have folk style, freestyle, and Greco have many of the same rules, except compared to freestyle and Greco-Roman. In freestyle, you can touch the legs, but in Greco-Roman, that would be considered illegal and would give the opponent an extra point. The way you win is by pinning the opponent's shoulders to the mat for 3 seconds, or by a fall, which is winning by points. Today, in the Olympics, Russia is in first place, with Japan in second and America in third. Today we have went over the origins of wrestling in ancient Greece, the important historical figures who have also wrestled, and the evolution of wrestling. I hope you think of more than just disrespectful students next time you hear wrestling.